Hello, and thank you so much for joining me for this Ignite Leadership Series. I'm really, really excited to be bringing you some fabulous leaders. We're going to have candid conversations. We're going to learn from their experience and hopefully get some really valuable morsels out of this series. So the reason why I've put this together is I have been in the industry for 20 years. I've been working with fabulous people. I've met some extraordinary leaders. I've helped build some extraordinary teams, and I really wanted to bring some of the knowledge and experience that I have come across to as many people as possible. So I've chosen LinkedIn Live to do this. I hope this forum works for everybody, and I will be here at 11:30 every Thursday until I run out of leaders to talk to, and I hope it's helpful for you. I've just put together this very short video to launch us each week so that people can see us go live, they can jump on board, and they know we're here. So bear with me, we will be going live at 11:30 as promised. So why is this important? This is important because it's to be good at what you do. It's really important to model good people. So if you want to be the best, model the best. And I have worked with so many wonderful leaders and helped them build teams. I've seen some really fabulous leadership styles. I've seen people who've developed over time as leaders, and the fastest way to do that is to, yes, there's theory, but let's move away from theory a little bit and let's look at what really happens in these roles for these people, and let's learn from the mistakes that some of the leaders have made. So I suppose I'm bringing mentors to the table through the experience that I have and the people who I have met over the years. So hopefully it's inspiring to you. Hopefully it's a place where you will gain some valuable information. Even if you pick up one thing from the conversation we're having each week, then that will be enough for me to feel as if I've brought you value. So I really do hope that you receive value from this. What I would love from you is if you can let us know you're here. Obviously we're live on LinkedIn. We would love interaction from you to know that you're here, you're listening. Let us know if there's something that comes up for you that resonates with you, something that you want to ask. The aim will be 20 minutes of conversation and then 5 to 10 minutes of Q&A, depending on how we end up. So hopefully that works for you all. As I say, please interact with us, engage. And if you would like a transcript of this session, I'm going to share transcripts with people who come to me and ask for them, and I will also put together a document which will be all of the key takeouts, the key learnings that we've received from each session. So I'll also be able to share that with you if you pop a comment in at the end of the conversation. So really excited to be here once again. Let's get on with it. I will see you on the other side. Hi, thank you so much for joining me. I am so excited to be here. First of many, I hope, of this Ignite series, and hopefully going to bring some huge value. So today, I would love to introduce Chris Reed. Chris has been kind enough to join us, share with us some of his insights, some of his experience, and I'm just going to give you a quick rundown on Chris's profile. I'll just invite Chris into the stream. So welcome, Chris. Can you hear us?
Hi, Rebecca. Yeah. Can you hear me?
I can, yes. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now, I'm just going to give everybody a bit of an overview of who you are and what you've achieved. Thanks again for being here. So Chris is a non-executive director, an advisor and investor in various high-growth startups, so having a pretty exciting and challenging time, I think, at the moment. He's comes off 30 years of experience in the IT industry, including 5 years as managing director of Xero and 15 years in Microsoft in various senior exec roles. So some fabulous big and small company and high growth experience there, which is exciting to hear from. Chris led Xero's expansion and took them from five people, seven people in Australia, and 3,500 customers to over 300 staff and 320,000 paying customers. That is huge. And in 2015, Chris actually received the award by CEO Magazine as the Financial Services Executive of the Year and runner-up as Managing Director of the Year. So congratulations on that. And so welcome, Chris. Thank you again for joining us. I'm just going to check in and see if we've got people coming on board. Hi, everyone. Thank you. Hi, Anthony. I'm not sure if you can see the
I'm seeing a few comments coming up, so it looks like people are joining.
Yeah, lots of people coming up here on the stream. So thank you for joining us, everyone. So, Chris, I would love to ask you first to tell us about why it was you got into leadership. So did you choose leadership or did leadership choose you? Because I often find people fall into it.
Definitely the latter. I think, if I recall back in 1998, so I'm showing my age here, I took on my first management role. And look, I think, I don't know if it's changed, but certainly back in the day, to progress your career, you typically would, you had to take on people management. I think Rebecca, you'd agree with me that now when I think about that, we do, in any other profession, you've got to be really qualified. You've got to have all sorts of qualifications, but, we tend to throw people into leadership roles. But you've got to start somewhere, right? So it wasn't necessarily something I really consciously thought about, hey, I want to become a leader. It was just that was a natural progression. But look, I really enjoyed it. I had a small team. I had to move to Sydney from Melbourne. I had a team of about 7 telesales staff. And look, I was fortunate the first couple of years I had some really good mentorship. I think that was at Microsoft, very big on people development, leadership development. I won a couple of awards in the first few years, people management awards. And I thought, oh, look, this is something that I think I'm reasonably good at. But I certainly didn't consciously go into the role thinking, hey, I'm going to become a people leader. It was more, the opportunity was there. It was a big career progression. I'm sure that's how a lot of people start in that capacity.
Yeah. It's interesting because, and you're lucky you're in an organisation who were prepared to give you the training and development, because I think a lot of the time you're sort of thrown into it and it's just sink or swim sort of stuff. And that to me is often a recipe for failure. And so it kind of isn't really fair. So who were the people who you really respected? So you obviously had some good mentors then. Who've been people you've really respected as leaders, and why has that been through your career?
Well, the one that really stands out for me is Steve Vamos, who's now running Xero. Coincidentally, by the way, I left before Steve started in that role, but Steve was he was the CEO of Microsoft in Australia, joined the organisation back, I think it was about 2002, when I was in a management role. And he joined at a time when the company was going through quite a difficult transition. If you remember back in that, when it was 20 years ago that Microsoft was under the pump a bit in the US, the Department of Justice was looking to break up the company through anti-competitive behaviour. And I think there was a recognition across the whole business that Microsoft had lost its way around its customer focus. And so globally, there was a recognition that we needed to turn the culture around and become much more customer-centric. And so Steve joined at a time when I think culturally we're a little bit lost on that front. And I remember distinctly on his first presentation to the management team, so he got all the people managers together, and there was a lot of us in one room in Sydney. And, he spoke about the need to change culture, but the way he did it was, I'll never forget, it was very much about expressing vulnerability, that I don't have all the answers, guys. Like, we need to change. This is the impact of where we are at the moment. You guys need to help lead the way, help me understand what we need to change as an organisation. I can't do it on my own. And it was incredibly empowering. I remember sitting back thinking, wow, you often see leaders come in and go, I have all the answers, right? I know what to do. I know how to fix this. And he was a guy who had a lot of experience, but instantly he connected with us because he sort of gave us that empowerment to sort of go on that journey with him. And I thought that was a really powerful approach for him to take. And then he went on to lead that organisation and change things quite dramatically. And it was very much around this whole notion of vulnerability, of transparency, of empowerment, all the cliche terms, but they played out, and it was very effective.
Yeah, fantastic. He sounds like he was a little bit ahead of his time, because this sort of vulnerability conversation is what's coming up now in the marketplace. Yeah. And something that I think a lot of leaders are struggling to adjust to, and is going to play out in terms of attracting and retaining high performers in the new. I'm not going to say the new normal. That's a terrible term. We're not talking about that stuff right now. But in the new type of cultures as they sort of coming up and moving forward. So that's phenomenal that you got that experience at such a young age.
I think people respect leaders that aren't necessarily claiming to have all the answers. That they want to. Inclusive cultures means that you sort of ignore hierarchy, and people can have their say, that they feel listened to and can participate in decisions without actually having to be on the senior exec team. And I think what Steve did, and I'm a big fan of it, is give people permission to speak up. Have an open culture where people can challenge decisions and can also, make recommendations. I know that some of the decisions that I made as a leader when I was at Xero often didn't come from my executive team. It was, I wanted to create a culture where people could approach me, and there were numerous occasions where somebody, in the support team or further down the organisation would feel comfortable either dropping me a note or just pulling me aside when we're down in the staff area, cafe, whatever, and we just have a conversation, and it's like, it's a good idea. And so a lot of that, really, you give people permission. You don't create this aura as a leader where you're unapproachable, because you miss so much stuff if you do that. It actually becomes a liability for you.
Yeah, that is the extreme version of it. And I think one of the things that is worth sort of raising here or looking at is that when you're hiring good people into your organization, when you want to bring quality people in, then you are innovation comes from including those people and using the knowledge they have. And I think a lot of companies miss that. And certainly I've seen in the number of people I've spoken to going through their careers, how frustrated they've been because they haven't had the opportunity to innovate and to be part of that conversation. And it's just, it's wasted knowledge and experience.
Plus, as a leader, it's just too hard. If I see a number of leaders that they want to be involved in every decision.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to work that hard.
Yeah,
ultimately, I would say that when I was at Xero, by the time I left, that leadership team was the best functioning leadership team I'd worked in. We deliberately set about so that we had clear, a lot of trust and empowerment, and I'd build a great team that, honestly, I felt my role was redundant in the end, because we had such a strong functioning leadership team, and it did come down to a lot of those factors that, I didn't need to be across every detail. I didn't want to be across all the detail. There was absolute trust within that team where, we were, it was just a great working environment. And that's, that's unusual, because we've all been in dysfunctional leadership teams where one or two or multiple players and the leader themselves don't operate that way. And it's stressful, you don't want that.
Yeah.
It's too short.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm always harping on this. We spend so much of our time at work. Why would you want to get up every day and go to something that just feels so hard? And when everybody's included and there's innovation going on, that's exciting. It's something you want to go and be part of every day. So it's phenomenal.
Good fun.
So as your role as leader, how do you define leadership? Like what is a leader for you?
Well, I think, it's a good question. I think it's about making others great. You don't take all the limelight. You give people autonomy. You empower people. It brings out the best in people when they feel that they've got that autonomy to work and make decisions. And that comes down to trust. So ultimately, a good leader needs to trust people. And And for me, you know, that is my first principle is trust the people that are working for you, with you. For me, trust is everything. And when that trust is breached, it's very hard to come back from that. And that's happened to me on a number of occasions over my career. And you deal with that. But first and foremost, it's, you know, you want others to be great around you. I know that when I reflect back on my time at Xero, Rod Drury, the founder, was incredibly good at that. You know, there were so many times where, you know, a guy like that who, you know, has done an amazing job as a real visionary would not want to take the limelight. He was always putting his people at the fore. No, you know, you got to do that. I don't need that limelight. You know, I got thrown into that role having never done any media. Suddenly I was, you know, live on Sky Business, you know, every month. And initially it was really, really daunting for me. But, you know, Rod just like, no, you do it. You just he threw me in the deep end, utter trust, you know, and, you know, it was really refreshing having come out of Microsoft, which was a great organization, and they did throw you in the deep end. But I think that kind of, you know, just being thrown into a startup like that where you've got to do everything was a bit of a shock to the system, but I loved it. It was great. It was a great opportunity.
Yeah, baptism of fire, as they say. Yeah. Fantastic. And so you've obviously been, I mean, you've had quite a lot of achievements yourself. What have been the sort of key wins for you as a leader? What are the things you're proud of?
Yeah, look, obviously, first and foremost, at a personal level, it was getting out of the big corporate. There's nothing wrong with that, but I did make a decision in 2010 that I really wasn't enjoying being in the big machine of Microsoft. Incredible organization. I've got a lot to thank them for. I learned a lot, and they were an organization ahead of its time in the sense of really investing in people and leadership development. So, you know, I had a lot of that to bring with me into the next role. But for me personally, you know, I remember being in a meeting one day, I think it was about August 2010, and I literally, as we went around and did our check-ins, it came to me, and I had a lot going on at the time, and I remember tearing up in the meeting because deep down I was so unhappy, and I got back to the hotel that night and I thought, what the fuck am I doing? I cannot die a corporate soldier. I need to go out and do something else. So I made the tough call. 3 weeks later, I resigned, and I had no job to go to, and I took a massive punt.
Yeah.
And I remember at the time that, you know, people in Microsoft were saying, you know, you're crazy, you know, because my next gig, I had a great career there, and it was, you know, we all know when we're in a safe situation, and big corporates can be very safe. You know, you've got to perform, but ultimately, you know, they're safe environments. I mean, going to a startup is a massive risk. I took a 50% pay cut, you know, going to Xero, and I remember it was challenging at the time, but I backed myself in, and I think that's a proud achievement for me, having made that call, because, as I said, I just felt I don't want to finish my career a corporate soldier. I want to go out and have a crack. You know, through my career at Microsoft, I've helped a lot of entrepreneurs in businesses that built services or other product companies in and around Microsoft do really well. And it wasn't just about the financial return for me. It was about knowing that I could go out and do something and actually prove to myself that, you know, yep, I've got all these skills that I've developed in corporate, but can I apply them to something smaller where I can really, really make my mark? And for me, Xero was the ultimate blank canvas. You know, I could go in there with 6 staff and build the culture that I thought I'd always dreamed of being able to do. And it was incredible. So when that comes to my other achievement, I mean, I think in 2014 or 15, whenever it was, when we were ranked, you know, in the top 20 best places to work, having taken it from this tiny little startup in a 100 square meter office in Richmond, that was huge, because for me, that was, you know, you can build market share, you can make revenue targets, you can, you know, drive share price, but ultimately when your staff turn around and say, this is an awesome place for me to work and to achieve my career ambitions, I mean, that was, you know, that was a huge tick in the box for me. I felt very proud, and not just for me, it was the leadership team, because we were all in it together. It's what we wanted to achieve as a business, and we did it. It was great. And, you know, Xero's gone on to be an amazing organization. I'm incredibly proud of you know, the fact that it was, you know, I joined thinking if I can make this number 2 or 3 in the market, it'd be awesome. I had no idea it was going to be that successful. But early on, as I started to see the traction in the market, it was good timing. I won't take all the credit, for sure. It was the right product at the right time in the market. But, it was exciting then to see the success that came with it. And everyone shared in that. It was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, fantastic. I have to say thank you, just to aside for a second, for sharing just, vulnerability and the real side of leadership. So I really appreciate it. And there's lots of comments, I think, coming up in the chat box where people are sort of acknowledging that. So thank you so much. It's so rare. And the focus for me is really to shift away from theory into reality. So this is brilliant. Thank you. How about when things aren't going so well? So can you tell me a story of maybe a time where you've had, because I know how important it is to have the right people in the right roles doing the right things, where you haven't had someone in the right role. Can you give us a bit of a feel for how you deal with that?
Well, I've got to be careful here to protect the guilty. I won't mention names or organisations there. Look, it happens all the time. I mean, probably the most or the least impact one was when I started at Xero with the little staff that I had. I hired someone in a support role, and technically brilliant, but just strange right. Person. I remember at the time a couple of people going, such and such is a bit strange. And that proved to be a bad call because, you sort of look at it and go, what harm can it do? They're in a support role and everything. But the impact on that small team, I think, about sub 20 people, and look, it didn't work out. And the lesson there was that, it doesn't matter what role you're hiring for, everyone contributes to culture. And if you've got someone who's not fitting in or doesn't meet the values that you're trying to espouse in the organisation, it can be a real problem. I ended up, and I remember Steve Amos, I had a great moment in my career when I was at Xero in the later years. I was on stage with Steve Amos talking about culture, and he gave me a hard time because I admitted that of the 320 people that we hired over that 5.5 years, I think I interviewed all but 5 people. And he said, "You're a control freak." And I said, "No, and I wasn't a control freak." I think that lesson to me taught me that you've got to pay attention. It doesn't matter. Like it might have been 10 minutes of a conversation, to have someone come into the, and meet me. And I said 2 things. It made sure that I could meet the person and just, I would just check in just on values. And I would rarely say no. I said no on a few occasions. And sometimes the managers would challenge me and go, "No, I think for these reasons, I think you're wrong." But there were probably 2 or 3 where I said absolutely not for these reasons. And it drove a great conversation and awareness at a leadership level that we were really particular about who we were bringing in. And we're all about diversity and things. So don't get me wrong. We weren't after a sort of a group think they have to sort of think and behave like me or anything. It was more, I just wanted to really understand that we're bringing people in that wasn't just a job, that we're building something that was special, that they really believed and had purpose and all those things. What it also meant was that it set, I think it demonstrated that the CEO, the guy at the top, really cared about who was coming through. I'd go into meetings with someone in a support role, an admin role, and they would like shit themselves. Like, "Oh my God, why does the CEO want to meet me?" Never happened before in their career. I mean, what a great skill that sense. So, look, that was just for me personally. I'm not suggesting everyone needs to do that, but for me, having an eye for culture and everything when you're hiring is really key. Coming back to your point, look, there's been times in my career, it comes back to trust. I've had people in roles that reporting to me where trust is eroded for various reasons. For me, I just find it really hard to come back from that, and that's generally been, and when I say trust, it might be that, as a leadership team, we discuss things that, need to be in the leadership team. And then I find they get out there and that, "Hey, it wasn't my decision," and you sort of go, well, you make calls as a leadership team, you back yourselves, right? You don't have, what's Chris's call, it's like, no, you don't do that. So there were times like that where for me, that was kind of, there was no coming back from that. I just think that you've got to back each other and trust is really key. So generally where things have sort of fallen apart, it's been where there's been a breach of trust.
Yeah, and trust is 2-way, right? So it's so important. And just there's a few things you've said there that I just give feedback on. One is, you talk about values and you talk about how important that is. And, you hear a lot about values, but often they're not real and they're not actually lived. And so when you've got a leader who is being specific and clear about what the values mean in terms of expected behaviors and expected characteristics, then that's when values really come into building a culture and really, build that. They just naturally build a great team and they naturally build trust. Yeah. So, and trust is just for me, it's the absolute foundation. So
I think, coming back to that point, there are times where you have to make tough calls, and you have to make tough calls that sometimes you don't feel great about. Like at the end of the day, you can't, as a leader, expect every decision you make to be great decisions that everyone's going to be wrapped with. You're running a business. Yeah. And sometimes you've got to toe the corporate line. And as much as that might make you feel, okay, I've got to go to the team and let them know this is something that we're doing. It could be cost cutting. It could be, basically making people redundant. It could be a range of different things. These are the decisions you need to make as a leader. And all I'm suggesting is that when you're a leadership team, even though they're tough decisions, when you get together and discuss those and make a call, you back each other up. Yeah. And that's what it's about. I'm all open for debate and all open to be challenged. But when you make that call as a leadership team, if you're not aligned with the rest of the business, there's a real problem there. And that's generally been where things have kind of fallen apart for me. But it hasn't happened that often, which is great.
This is such a great conversation, and we're at 11:53. I'm wishing I'd gone for an hour now because we've got so many things we could delve into. So a couple more quick questions, and then I will see if there's any questions from the people watching. We've got, I think we've got 32 on live. Hopefully we'll have some more feedback afterwards. So I had a question around loyalty and longevity. How highly do you rate loyalty and longevity in people who work for you, and from your own perspective?
Yeah, look,
a long time.
Well, loyalty is really, really important to me. For all the reasons I've outlined, I think you want to know that the team has your back, and vice versa. You back your people, and that all comes down to loyalty. I'm not necessarily big on longevity. I mean, I'm probably a good example of that. I mean, look at Xero, right? I mean, Xero for me. So I was 15 years at Microsoft, and if I had my time again, I would not have spent 15 years at Microsoft. I did try to escape earlier, a little bit like the Melbourne lockdown. I did try to escape, but not the right thing came up. But I was looking. But I think there's a point in your career, for me personally, where longevity actually becomes a bit of a liability. Yeah. I remember Vamos even pulling me aside after I'd done 11 years or something. He goes, at some point this is going to be a liability to you because you look institutionalized. Now, some people are really comfortable in corporate culture, but if you want to move on and experience different things, there's a point at which you've got to pull the pin. I mean, Xero's a great example. It would have been very easy and safe for me to stay there. I remember going to a leadership offsite in late 2015, and the path ahead, the next 3 years, kind of looked like, okay, we've built the machine, now we need to crank the handle harder, which is awesome when you consider that we'd nailed the model, and it was now about really going after market share and doing the same but doing it harder and faster and all those things. Great, awesome for investors because, there's not too many $12 billion companies in Australia. So that was a huge success story. But for me personally, as a leader, the stuff that really excited me and energized me was probably the early years when we were figuring shit out. Like that was the stuff that I reflected back on at that time, thinking, I love the company. I'm really proud of what we've built. I was happy to stay, but there was something inside my head going, there's something more. And what I do today is really interesting because I'm involved in 7 different tech companies. Mentoring founders and CEOs, and I'm on boards and I advise in a whole lot of different areas, and I love that variety. And I don't think I would have got that staying at Xero, even though that would have probably been a safe bet.
Yeah. I think it's really important to, and I'm very big on, another thing I harp on about a lot is helping leaders and people in business to love what they do and live a life they love. And I think, they both come together. And if you don't make deliberate decisions through your career that work for you at the time, then, it's hard to do that. It's hard to sort of follow that. So a couple more quick questions. Favorite quotes and mantras. Do you have any favorite quotes or mantras that you that have really worked for you through your time as a leader?
The one that I think, yes, there are. I mean, I love the one, the behavior you walk past is the culture you accept. That was one thing that always struck me. I'm not sure where it came from, and I'm not sure I've even got the quote right. But what I mean by that is that there are many moments of truth through the day that you as a leader, your behaviours, what you say, or in fact what you don't say, sends such a powerful signal to the rest of the organisation. I think if I can sort of, one thing that I'm really conscious of that I improved a lot over the years, and probably because I got old and grumpy, but the one thing that I would say that I was consistent on throughout was that I did not fear conflict. If I saw things that I felt I was uncomfortable with because of the message it sent to the rest of the organisation, I'd deal with it. And I think I see often in organisations that there's a lot of conflict avoidance, and it compounds to the point where it becomes so toxic for a culture, because people know, if people are getting away with behaviours that are not consistent with your values, they know, right? And all it does is erode your credibility as a leader if you don't deal with it. Now, the earlier you can deal with it, the better. And they're not easy, right? No one likes conflict. Human nature, conflict's not an easy thing. But I've always felt that constructive conflict, I encourage it, like debate one another. One of my favourite books is The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lincione, right? Now, I know, Rebecca, you know that book. I give that book to all the leaders I work with, because there's elements in there that I just think are so important when you break down how teams become dysfunctional. And I think it's a great little fable, that book. So, but yeah, I think avoidance of conflict is one of the big problems. The other one I like is, I don't know if I got this right, but it's, businesses move at the speed of trust. And again, that trust element, that you see organisations when leadership teams are fractured, that people they don't have that trust. They haven't worked on building relationships or resolving conflicts between them. And if that's happening at a leadership team level, I guarantee it's filtering down through the organisation. And so, so if you want your business to move quickly, the related saying that, I'm giving you 3 here. My God, I'm going crazy. But the one I used to love, Rod Drury used to say it all the time, was, it's not the big that eat the small, it's the fast that eat the slow. And his message to the team was, don't fuck around with decisions, guys. Like, if you're going to make a mistake, that's okay, but make a call, get on with it. And, we were dealing at a time with competitors that were very slow and cumbersome, and we were running rings around them. And that's how we won. And I remember that. And a lot of that comes down to, you can't move quickly unless there's utter trust across the organisation. So people talk about culture being fluffy. It's not. It's real, and it has absolute impact in terms of business outcomes and success.
Yeah. That is, we have run out of time. I haven't even done questions, but that's a phenomenal way to end. I have one more question that I'm going to throw at you. Again, thank you so much for all your honesty and just being real on this. This is fantastic, and I know people are really appreciating it. So if you could pass on nothing else, if you were only able to pass on one thing, so everything else has disappeared, what would be the one key thing that you would share with upcoming leaders that's really important to them?
Yeah, don't try to be anyone you're not. I think for a while there, I was uncomfortable with the fact that, did I need to be more outgoing? Did I need to be stronger? And, I think be yourself and be comfortable with the person you are. Leaders, I think when you're early in your career, you see leaders, and it's always about, someone beating their chest and being really strong and vivacious. And I'm not that sort of person. And over the years, I've become more comfortable with the fact that, it's okay to be who I am, and you make mistakes, and don't beat yourself up, but don't try and have this sort of concept of what you need to be as a leader and the style and everything, because, it's got to be genuine, right? I mean, people, if you want to connect with people, you've got to be authentic and genuine. So you've got to be yourself and be comfortable. And that would be my tip. Just be very comfortable with who you are.
Yeah, fantastic. That's a fabulous thing to live your life by, and I wish we knew it as children. It's hard, everything feels so magnified, and when you're a child, and then when you're growing up as a leader. So that's a phenomenal message. So thank you. Now, I'm sorry we don't have time to jump into questions. I think we've answered a lot of questions for people. You've answered a lot of questions for people. There's some wonderful feedback going on in the chat. Everybody is really grateful. Some people have even said they would have loved you as their leader. So yeah, well, there's some startups out there you might want to look at, guys. So yeah, thanks again. I really appreciate it. And just for everybody on, I am interviewing Ken Bowl next week from Cisco. So we're going to be talking about the Cisco journey from employer of choice to not so much, and then back into the sort of new world of employer of choice. So, and the importance of leadership through that. So that's exciting too. Please join me. And I'm also offering a transcript of today's session. So if you would like a transcript and you would like me to, I'm going to put together a document with the key points and learnings we've had from Chris today, then do just pop a note in the comments or get in touch with me, and I will share that with you too. I'm going to jump into a outro video now just to finish off and let you know where you can contact me. But if you want to connect with Chris, please reach out to him on LinkedIn. And obviously me as well. I think a lot of us are connected. And I look forward to seeing everyone here again next week, 11:30. And enjoy the rest of your day, everybody. And thanks again, Chris.
Pleasure. Great to be on the show, Rebecca.
Yeah, wonderful. It was a great way to kick it off. So thank you so much.
All right. Cheers, guys. Thank you.
See you. Thank you for joining us today. I'm so grateful you managed to take time out to spend with us. I hope you got some value from the conversation. And just a reminder, I will be here every Thursday at 11:30 talking to another fabulous leader and bringing you more great morsels and value and mentoring. So please do join me. And if there's anything you would like to talk about when it comes to attracting, developing, retaining high-performing teams, please reach out. I would love to have a conversation. If you would like a transcript of the session, please remember to leave me a message or get in touch, and I'll also produce a document which will have the key takeouts from today's session, so I can share that with you too. All right, thanks again. Have a fabulous day. I will see you next time.